first question is from, we see glasses, and I said we would get to the glasses. We'll do that in, I think the next question's either the ear or the eye, but okay. Here, this is from Dube, and Dube Fazile, thank you very much for sending your question in. It's like a hard one, okay? So you're going to have to bear with me while I draw this person. But before we do this, I just want to remind you about what we did last week. So have a look here, okay? We have the brain and the spinal cord, okay? Or let's do it like that. There's the brain, and you have the spinal cord, okay? That makes up your central nervous system because it's in the center, okay? Then we have the peripheral nervous system. Peripheral means on the side, okay? So you have your peripheral vision is everything that you can see. When I look at the camera, for example, I'm looking at the camera, but I can see everything from there all the way around to about here. So if you sit down now and you put everything down and you take your hands and you wiggle, wiggle, wiggle your fingers, you can wiggle, 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 like from here. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. And when you can't see your fingers anymore, that's when your peripheral vision is over. And the same with above your head to below your head when you are looking straight at something. Okay, so all of that would be peripheral vision. Now here we're talking about the peripheral nervous system. And the peripheral nervous system is all your sense organs. So remember, sense organs are not just touch, because you've got sight, you've got your sense of smell, your sense of taste, and your sense of smell and taste are linked, by the way, because they're both chemoreceptors. And then you've also got hearing, which is your ears, and then your skin. But within your skin, you've also, it's not just touch. It's pain, it's temperature. All those different senses are picked up by receptors, and they are then sent to the peripheral nervous system. You've even got mechanoreceptors and also pressure receptors in your joints. So all of that makes up your peripheral nervous system. And that would be your arms and your feet and your legs and your body, okay, and your face with your eyes and your ears and your nose and your mouth, okay, and all your skin, all of it. That makes up your peripheral nervous system. So everything from your peripheral nervous system will go to the spinal cord, to the brain. And here, to the spinal cord, to the brain. And from the brain, to wherever it's got to go. So that's your peripheral nervous system. It has the receptors. And those receptors, sensory receptors, are going to take information to the central nervous system. Then we have the autonomic nervous system. So autonomic. Better put central in here as well. Central. Okay? So if we look at the autonomic nervous system, auto means on its own. So if you have an automatic car, or you drive in, or your parents have an automatic car, it's automatic. It works without you having to change gears. If you have an automatic washing machine, it works on its own. You put the washing in, you set the cycle, and it does its own thing. So auto means on its own. So automatic, so your autonomic nervous system is automatic. It is composed of two components. You have the sympathetic autonomic nervous system, and you have the parasympathetic autonomic nervous system. Now, sympathetic's job is to stimulate organs. And parasympathetic, para means to sleep, actually. So when someone is a paraplegic, it means that that part of their body has gone to sleep. And it's actually a very nice way of thinking about it. Okay, and then that means that they're paralyzed Para means to sleep. So parasympathetic means that it is the part of the autonomic nervous system that is going to inhibit or slow down, but it inhibits an organ from functioning. So every one of your glands is going to have sympathetic and organs, sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves coming in, so that it can either the brain can either stimulate or inhibit. And the two parts of the brain that work very closely with the autonomic nervous system is your medulla oblongata and your hypothalamus. So let me just put your hypothalamus and the medulla oblongata. Okay, and they work very closely with the autonomic nervous system. So you're either going to have the sympathetic, which is going to stimulate an organ or gland, and the parasympathetic, which is going to inhibit it. All right, so inhibit doesn't mean you stop it. Inhibit doesn't mean you destroy it. It just means you stop it. It would be like if somebody came up behind you and put their arms tight, well, they're not allowed to now because of COVID-19, because we're all trying to kill ourselves, but they put the arm around you and they'll hold you tight and you can't move. That's inhibiting. But the minute they let go, well, clearly you can move around. All right, so your heart, if your heartbeat increases, it's sympathetic. If your heartbeat slows down and you calm down, it's the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, so the two work opposite. All right, so it's called double innervation. Double, two. One stimulates, one inhibits. Okay, and your autonomic nervous system would be your heart and your lungs and your kidneys. And then you'd have the adrenal glands and you'd have the pancreas and the testicles in males and the ovaries in females. And every organ in your body, your digestive system, your liver, all of it works with the autonomic nervous system, as well as all your blood vessels. Okay, now remember another thing that you need to think about, is that when something dilates and constricts. Okay, dilates, think about when a person dies, they're chilled. Okay, they relaxed, they're chilled, they died. And they just like lie there. Whereas when something constricts, it's like, so constricts versus dilates. And that's how you're going to remember. Constricts, think of C for constricts. So C for constricts and C for contract. Okay, and it's all like uptight. Whereas if it's dilated, it is chilled. It's relaxed. It's open versus contracted and closed. All right, so dilate. So when we talk about blood vessels, when blood vessels dilate, they're going to be large. And when blood vessels constrict, they're going to be contracted. They're going to be small. The hole is going to be tiny. Okay, so look here. So the hole is small. So when the blood vessel, for example, is dilated, then you're going to have less pressure. But the smaller that blood vessel becomes when it constricts, then we say there's going to be more pressure. And this is something that the hypothalamus controls. It controls your blood pressure, at least your medulla oblongata controls the blood pressure. So this is called vaso for vessels. Okay, so vasodilation and vasoconstriction. Okay, vasodilation, blood vessels open, less pressure. Vasoconstriction, closed. And if it's constricted, it's contracted, and everything is small, there's a lot of pressure. Okay, all of that is the medulla oblongata, and that makes sure, and also your hypothalamus regulates your pressure. It regulates just about everything in your body. Okay, so having said all of this, we are now going to go to our question. And I need extended pages. Alrighty, here we go. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, we've got this guy, we've got his brain. Okay, we've got the cerebellum. Okay, this is the cerebrum. Then in here, corpus callosum, and then pituitary gland, and then and then it's got, okay. Now we have his body, so there's his head, and his eyeball, which they've drawn as an eyeball, and I've made, guys and girls, this is not as easy as it looks. I wish I did art at school. Okay, so we're going to have, this guy's head is not the right shape. I don't know how those, I always take my hat off to people that can draw so beautifully. Okay, so we'll go in here. There's the eye socket, there's the nose, and the lips, and this poor guy's shame. And then we go to the neck. Okay, we'll have to redo this here a little bit. Okay, so there's his neck, and ay. All right, and then we're going to have, it's going to go here, and then his neck, and then his shoulder. And over here, they just do that. Alrighty, now, from this spinal cord, we've got, the way this drawing looks is like this. Okay, and then over here, they've got a muscle that's drawn. All right, an eyeball, and they've literally drawn the eyeball like this. Okay, and then you've got the salivary gland, and then there's a link here which goes into the brain. Okay, what am I missing here? Oh, they draw in over here. They draw the skull. So let's do the skull in a different color. And then you've got the vertebrates, and you've got the skull that goes all the way around, and all the bones, etc. here. Okay, so this is just to show you that the vertebrae are here. So that should be your cervical vertebra or the neck. Okay, what am I missing? Oh, one more. And then from here, they've got things that look like this. And a person may make the mistake of thinking these are actually ribs. They're not. They are your spinal nerves. Remember, you have 31 pairs of spinal nerves. So those nerves are from your peripheral nervous system, and they go into the spinal cord, all right? They're 31 pairs, all right? Now, okay, let's see. We've got our eyeball, salivary gland. Okay, now let's do our labels. This is, they've labeled this part as A, okay? And then this one is B, and this one is C, and they say here with a bracket, this is the brain. All right, then this is D, and that one and that one are E. So it's this. I'm going to just take this here. Let me remove that. Okay, so this would be clearly a nerve coming from the eye, and a nerve coming from the salivary gland is E, which will be your cranial nerves. There are 12 pairs of those. And then this, as they tell you, is the salivary gland. Okay, and then this is the one that's quite tricky. Let's do it like this. Okay, and then this will color in. I've chosen a nice little green here, so we're going to do our green. Let's see. So first label here is the cerebrum. Okay, and then B points to this little guy here, which is the cerebellum. All right, and then we go to C, which is there, and this is a really important little structure called the medulla oblongata. You can't just call it the medulla. We did this last week. You can't just say, oh, the medulla. It's not the medulla. Medulla just means middle. Okay, so you've got the cerebral cortex and you've got the medulla of the cortex as well. So you've got just about every organ and gland has a medulla and a cortex. Cortex is on the outside, medulla is on the inside. So please don't call it a medulla, it's the medulla oblongata. Okay, now the medulla oblongata sits here, and then we've got D, which is the spinal cord. Okay, and then E would be your cranial nerves. Okay, from the eye. So from the eyeball, that's your optic nerve. All right, and from the salivary gland over here, you see there it is over there. Okay, so cranial nerves, and then our label is missing here when we try to reset everything. Where's my picture? This, let me just get my picky. This was F. Okay, and F, we shaded that in. See, as we try to delete that thing that was on the screen, it started taking off everything else. Oh, they do say that this is the biceps muscle. Okay, and then F would be, let's go back to our color, this would be your spinal nerve. Spinal nerves, because you're pointing to 2. Okay, now, having a look at all of this, you guys need to know what each structure in the brain and the central nervous system, and in fact all the nervous systems are, okay? So what the structure is versus what its function is. And I'm going to do it. Let's do it this way. I want you to see, this is how you study. Okay, so this is studying 101. You're going to draw a table like this, which you are going to stick up behind the toilet door or on the fridge, and you're going to learn. So this is structures. Okay, and over here you put functions, or clearly of the brain. Okay, so the first one, say the cerebrum. And if we look at the cerebrum, what does it do? It receives and interprets impulses from sense organs. So you can put in brackets here, sight, smell, sight, smell, taste, hearing, touch, and with touch you've got temperature, and you have pain. Okay, all of that. That's what the cerebrum does. But what else does the cerebrum do? The cerebrum is responsible for being it is the center of higher intelligence, memory, reasoning. More specifically, it's the frontal lobe that does higher intelligence, memory, reasoning. All of that sits here in your frontal lobe. Okay, so center of, we spoke last week of putting your finger next to your temples when you're thinking, or looking up when you're thinking. It's like you're saying to your frontal lobe, oi, can you just switch on a bit because I need some information. All right, what else does the cerebrum do? Cerebrum also is, it controls all voluntary movements. Now look at this. Move. Movements. Okay, it's voluntary movements because your involuntary movements are controlled by the spinal cord and the reflex arc, which results in a reflex action. We did all of this last week, if you recall. Okay, so that would take care of the cerebrum. Then what are we going to do next? Let's do the cerebellum. And the cerebellum's easy. Cerebellum is easy because it controls balance so that you can walk on a tightrope. Balance, equilibrium, so you don't fall on your face. And it also controls muscle tone, because it's that muscle tone that keeps you upright, okay? It also coordinates voluntary movements. Now look at this. Your cerebrum controls voluntary movements, and your cerebellum coordinates voluntary movements. There's a difference. Controlling voluntary movements means that they're going to happen, but they must be coordinated. I can lift my hand or my arm by this muscle contracting, okay? But it has to be coordinated because I can't lift my arm and then fall over. All of that is coordination to maintain balance and equilibrium, and that is the cerebellum. And how? Because the cerebellum gets all its information, okay, directed to it mainly from your joints, so receptors in your joints, every single joint that you have, and your inner ear, which is the macula, the sacculus, the utriculus, and which contain macula. And then you've got the ampulla, which contain the cristae, which are in the semicircular canals. That's balance and equilibrium. And then clearly hearing is the cochlea. Okay, but we'll get to that later. So we got the cerebellum done. Okay, I hope you guys are writing this down because I'm doing it slowly. Okay, then we have the medulla oblongata. And if we look at the medulla oblongata, this is incredibly important. It is the control center, okay, for vital. Vital means if it doesn't work, you're dead. Vital reflex activities. Okay, now let's think. What would those vital reflex activities be? Number one, very important, okay, is going to be the rate and depth of breathing. And why do I say rate and depth of breathing? I can go, and I am going to hyperventilate and fall over. All right, why? Because I am not filling my lungs. I'm just taking a little bit of air in, and I'm moving the air up and down, in and out of the pipes leading to my lungs. All right, so you're going, you're not actually breathing. You're building up a carbon dioxide, an oxygen deficit, which is a big problem. So it would be the same as breathing into a paper bag, okay, to calm you down. Right, so it's not just how fast or slowly you're breathing, it's how deeply you are breathing. And you can also tell when someone's fallen asleep by the rhythm of the way they are breathing. Okay, so the rate and depth of breathing is number one. Okay, the other very important is the rate of heartbeat. And this is together. These two work together because the quicker you are breathing, the faster your heart is beating because it's got to get that blood everywhere in your body. That's like when you exercise. When you're sitting chilled, your heart rate is slow, your breathing rate is slow, you're breathing better, everything is good. Okay, the third thing, medulla, is it controls blood pressure. So you remember earlier I spoke about the vasodilation and vasoconstriction. So vasodilation and vasoconstriction. Okay, so the size of those blood vessels makes a huge difference. If they're wide, so they're nicely dilated, the blood's going to move through slowly. Okay. Medulla, what else? Oh, wait, and very important as well, also nba, okay, with the medulla, is that it is here where the nerve fibers cross over, okay, from left side of body to right hemisphere of brain and vice versa. So this is where the crossover happens. That is why if you have damage to, say, the left side of your brain, seeing my hands up here, the left side of your brain, the right side of your body becomes paralyzed and doesn't want to work. Or if you have a stroke on the left side of your brain, the right side of your body doesn't work. Or if it's on the right side of your brain, the left side of your body doesn't work, depending on where the clot was or the damage is. Okay, because the nerve fibers cross over at the medulla oblongata. Why? Because that's our third point, is that it is the connection between the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, have I forgotten anything? Control center, heart rate, breathing rate, and depth. Yeah, I got it all. Okay, so in an exam, they can ask you any one of these 3 points, okay, within a question where you are going to apply what you know. So you must know this. There is no two ways about it. You have to learn it. So do what I'm doing now. Draw your table and stick it up on the fridge. Maybe stick another copy behind the toilet door. Maybe stick another copy next to your mirror in your bedroom, so that you have to read it and look at it. Make a point of looking at it 5 times a day. Set a reminder on your phones. Once you know it, you know it. You're never ever going to forget it. And if you know it, you can apply it. Okay, so what are we going to do next? So we've got the cerebrum, the cerebellum. Let's do the spinal cord. Okay. So if we look at the spinal cord, it literally conducts all nerve impulses. So your motor neurons and your sensory neurons, the impulses that travel, it's going to be all of them, okay, up and down. So to and from the brain. Okay, then it is also, and this is very important, the point of the reflex arc Okay, now remember, a reflex arc is the path that the impulse is going to travel through neurons so that it goes only through the spinal cord to the effector. So it goes your sensory receptor, so your receptor, connector neuron, motor neuron, response with the effector. Why? Because you want it to be a quick, sharp, automatic reaction to a stimulus. Why? You want to save your body. You want to protect your body. It's for protection. And the spinal cord does that. Okay, the spinal cord doesn't work and it stops. It's not going to conduct those messages up and down. And that's when your spinal cord is broken, severed. What happens? You're not going to have the impulses moving backwards and forwards. So everything below that break won't work because it can't get messages from the brain. Right. So spinal cord. Hypothalamus. We can't forget the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus. Now, I've made jokes since the beginning of the year about the hypothalamus. And I've said to you, remember around Valentine's, I said to you girls, if a guy says to you, oh, I love you with all my heart, and I said to you, tell him, go away, you don't really love me. But if someone tells you, oh, I love you with my whole hypothalamus, then you know they truly love you. Okay, they really love you because without the hypothalamus, you're dead. Okay, without the medulla oblongata, you are dead. So if someone says to you, I love you with my whole medulla oblongata, it doesn't sound as romantic as my whole hypothalamus. So here you go. The hypothalamus. This is a major hero. This is the hero of your body. Okay, the hypothalamus. It's the hypothalamus, actually, that coordinates your nervous system, so central, autonomic, peripheral nervous systems, and your chemical coordination, so all your hormones. It's the hypothalamus that does that because the hypothalamus controls the pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland, as we all know, is the master gland. So here we go. The hypothalamus. Hypothalamus. Okay, first let's start with it controls the autonomic nervous system. I'm not writing, I mean, you know, autonomic nervous system and homeostasis. And we know that we need homeostasis and the negative feedback mechanisms for us to function. Okay, how? Hang on. How? By regulating. People, please, you have to learn this. I'm not doing this for fun. This is for you. By regulating what? It regulates temperature, body temperature. It regulates water balance, so it's osmoregulation. So your water balance. Okay? It regulates metabolism. Metabolism. So all your diets, this is the part that you need to stimulate because that's where your metabolism functions. Okay? And it also regulates the pituitary gland function. Okay, so if we look, okay, then, so that's the autonomic nervous system that it controls. Hypothalamus, See, this is when you get a bit old, I've got to think. It controls smooth muscle functioning. Now remember, your smooth muscles are all your organs. All your organs. Your whole digestive system, your respiratory system, your excretory system, every system in your body consists of smooth muscle. Okay, so you've got voluntary muscle, and you have smooth muscle, and you have cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle in the heart. Voluntary muscles are all your, or striated muscles are all the muscles of your actual muscles. So it's the movement, okay, for movement. And then you've got the smooth muscles. So it controls the smooth muscle function. Oh, wait, and it is the center, and this is the interesting part, for controlling biorhythms. Gosh, rhythms is always such a horrible word to spell. Rhythms, okay? How does that make sense? English really is a very difficult language. So Center for Controlling Biorhythms and Cycles. So it's going to then end up with things like sleep, sex drive, what else? Aggression. Okay. In the old days, they used to stick something that looked like a little tiny ice cream scoop into the eye. In fact, I think they also still do it today in some very primitive places. And then they wiggle, woggle, wiggle, woggle the hypothalamus because that then is supposed to like calm you down. Okay, because it is the center for controlling your biorhythms and cycles and aggression. Okay, and what and I can't think of, oh, you know what, is cerebrospinal fluid. So just quickly just zap that last one in here. Cerebrospinal fluid. Or you can just call it CSF. Okay, and your cerebrospinal fluid is like a shock absorber. Okay, and protects the brain and spinal cord. I'm just going to put SC here. So the brain and the spinal cord. What else does it do? Oh, it also provides nutrients and oxygen to the central nervous system cells and removes wastes from the central nervous system cells. And there was something else. Oh, and it maintains the pressure around the central nervous system, but really that's like bleh. Okay, so there you go. Let's just put that in as the last point. Maintains pressure. That's why if there's too much pressure, they give you a lumbar punch around the central nervous system. Okay, people, all of this, if you know this, I promise you now, there is not a question on the brain or the spinal cord that you are going to battle with. In fact, the brain rather. Okay, so let's look at our questions here. Back to our thing. So we've got the cerebrum, we've got the cerebellum, we've got the medulla oblongata, which is hero number 2. We've got the spinal cord. There's our optic nerve. We've got the cranial nerves, salivary glands, spinal nerves, biceps. Okay, so where are my questions? Here we go. And it says, explain each of the following observations by referring to the function and the part of the brain indicated. First thing they're going to ask is they say here, this one, number C, and number C we know is the medulla oblongata. Damage to this part of the brain, labeled C, okay, will result in death. What? Even if the other parts of the brain and body are functioning? No. This question's not right. Because, people, if the medulla oblongata is damaged, it is the link between your spinal cord and your brain, which means that your body is not going to be able to function, and your brain is not going to be able to send anything down to anywhere and respond. So, damage to part, they actually say, even if all the other parts of the brain and the body are functioning, the other parts of the brain can't function. Why? And this is what your answer will say. You'll say, part C is the medulla oblongata, which is the vital reflex center. Vital means without it you die. Vital reflex center to determine the rate and depth of breathing. and the rate of heartbeat, or your heartbeat rate and blood pressure, as well as the point or junction of nerve impulses between the spinal cord and the brain. If the medulla oblongata is damaged, it results in death and nothing will work. It's as simple as that. Okay, very strange question. Okay, but I can see what they actually wanted. And then it says a blood clot in the right cerebral cortex. Now remember, cerebral means part of the cerebrum. Cortex is the cortex part of the cerebrum, because the cerebrum has the cortex on the outside and the medulla on the inside. Gray matter, white matter. Fibers are white matter. Gray matter are the cell bodies. Okay, so when they say the cerebral cortex, it's the outer part of the cerebrum at position A, which is the cerebrum. Okay, may result in paralysis of the left arm. So let's look at this. If the right side of the cerebrum is damaged for whatever reason, okay, the impulses, all right, are going to now have to move from the right side of the brain to the left side of the body. And anything perceived on the left side of the body will cross over at the medulla oblongata, which is about in line with your chin, okay, and then to the brain. So, but it's going to cross over. So, because the right hemisphere of your brain controls the left side of your body, this is your answer. If the right side of the cerebrum or the cerebral cortex is damaged, it will impact the left side of the body because of the crossing over of impulses at the medulla oblongata. And you will end up with this being damaged, you will end up with the left side of the body not functioning or being paralyzed. And if it is not functioning, that is why the left arm will be paralyzed or not work. A result in paralysis of the left arm, that's why it won't work. Okay, give 2 reasons why humans do need a nervous system. Oh, wow. Okay. Not a question I would have asked, but so why do you think we need a nervous system? Because your nervous system and the receptors, sensory receptors of the nervous system receive stimuli that are external and internal, and that is then converted to a stimulus and sent to the central nervous system, the spine and the brain. And that will then have implement or ensure that a response occurs. And that is what your brain does. That's what your nervous system does. It makes sure that you are safe and that you have everything you need and that you can respond to stimuli, internal and external stimuli. Okay. Tabulate 2 structural differences between the nervous and chemical coordination. Okay, let's go down. Easiest way to do anything, always a table. So if they ask you to tabulate, remember you're going to get a mark for drawing the table and writing in the correct headings. So tabulate, so we'll say nervous system or nervous coordination. Don't just write coord, it will be wrong. And chemical coordination. Okay, so with first thing, the most important thing, the easiest thing is that your nervous system is made up of, is made up of nerves. Okay, so consists of nerves. And your chemical coordination, that's your endocrine system, it consists of glands. So those are both structural. Then, secondly, your nervous system produces nerve impulses. And what does your chemical system do? It produces chemical messengers called, come on, I can hear all of you, hormones. It's called hormones. All your hormones are chemical messengers. That's all they are. A messenger can't do anything, but they can tell somebody to do something. In this case, your glands, your endocrine glands, are going to release or produce the chemical messengers called hormones. And what's going to happen? Those messengers are going to go into the blood because your endocrine glands are ductless. Okay, consists of gland. I'm going to just put endocrine here. So your chemical coordination is by endocrine glands. Produces chemical messengers called hormones, and hormones released into blood to travel to a target organ, or sometimes it's more than one, so it'll be organ or organs. Okay, here with your nervous system, it produces nerve impulses, and what do those nerve impulses do? They are transmitted along the nerve fibers. Transmitted along the nerve fibers to, here you're going to target organs, and here you are going to go to effector organs. Okay, and your effector organs in this case are going to be your muscles and also glands. And the glands, when the autonomic nervous system is involved. Okay, so there are three differences, and they are easy differences to remember. You've got nerves that produce impulses, and those impulses are going to be transmitted to the central nervous system and then to an effector organ. Okay, there's one more question here. And the last one says, give the letters and names of the parts which make up the peripheral nervous system, which was from our diagram. So what makes up the peripheral nervous system? It would have been E, which is the cranial nerves, and it would have been F, the spinal nerves. And remember, your cranial nerves, there are 12 pairs. Okay, and your spinal nerves, there are 31 pairs. And that makes up the total of 43 nerves or nerve pairs that you are going to find in the body of any human being.